Thank you, Angel. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to the Land Use Committee meeting at CB11's. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:31 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Angel McCain, the staff liaison for our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon, and actually, I'm gonna skip that because we're in person. So the board members should be in person. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat function is no longer, as of executive committee, we're not using it any further during committee meetings. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. We will now take the attendance by roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Adem Briha. Devin Crenshaw. Present. Kenneth Crouch. Present. Jessica Elliott.
Present.
Jessica Morris.
Present.
Nosa Orama.
Here.
Beverly Pabon.
Here. Right on
Vinnie
time.
Torres.
Present.
Jason Villanueva.
That's sentence.
And Candy is excused. You have quorum.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Moving the agenda along, going to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to the adopting agenda, you may raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes, I am still waiting from the author for the meeting minutes in June. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to pass any meeting minutes for this month. We're sure to have it to all of you by next month. Announcements. In the interest of time, each section of the agenda should reflect the day's needed time of allotment. Does anybody have any announcements specific?
So I have two, and I'll read them quickly. With regards to the Harlem African Burial Ground Memorial and Mixed Use Project, EDC has released a request for proposals called the Education and Engagement Services, 126th Street African Burial Ground Memorial and Mixed Use Project, seeking a team to complete education and engagement services regarding the history and cultural impact of the Harlem African Burial Ground. The RFP application deadline is October 4th. We have the information, of course, you can find the information on EDC's website. We also have a link to it on the board's website, which I just learned is back up and running.
Oh.
There's also the 18th is public meeting on the Harlem African Burial Ground.
And a public meeting on the 18th, which we have on our community events calendar, just to note here. And then secondly, Community Board 11 will hold public hearings on, we'll have 3 public hearings during our next full board meeting. The first on the draft fiscal year 25 statement of district needs, and as well as the land use applications for 2226 3rd Avenue, which will be heard this evening, and Bimbala Terrace, which will also be heard this evening. The hearings will take place, as I said, during CB11's full board meeting on September 26th, which will be hybrid. The in-person portion will be held at Dream Charter School, 1991 2nd Avenue. Anyone wishing to submit testimony on any of these 3 can submit it via email to the board office at mn11@cb.nyc.gov, or they can send it to me here at the board office. That's all I have, Jason.
Thank you. Moving the agenda along, I'm sorry, any other announcements? All right, that being said, we're moving forward. Any informational updates? I have none. Anybody else? Move the agenda along. Presentations and discussions. So at this time, we'll now hear our first presentation as our presenter on site or online.
The first application, there he is, Richard Bass.
Hi, it's good to be before Community Board 11 again. I wish it was in person. I miss the in-person meetings. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I do this correctly. You cannot start up. Try it again. There. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so This is a rezoning for a site on the southwest corner of Third Avenue and 121st Street. It's an unusual application in that the applicant has built the building. If you can see my cursor, this is an actual picture of the building as constructed. The applicant built the building pursuant to the existing zoning, which has certain restrictions on use. And what we're seeking tonight is a slight amendment to those uses to allow for greater life science use throughout the building. Right now, the building is split by two different zoning districts. The C46 on the avenue, 100 feet deep, and then 50 feet west is in a R7 zoning district. And life science isn't permitted in an R7 zoning district. So what we're proposing tonight is to amend the zoning map, amend the East Harlem Corridor Special District, and to allow for life science to be in the built building. In the middle picture, you can see the rendering, and this was a color picture of the rendering. So this is a summary of the site and the proposal. The site is a little shy of 19,000 square feet. As I mentioned, it's in the C46 East Harlem corridor, and the R7B is outside the corridor. The maximum permitted in the C46 is a 9 FAR residential, a 3.4 commercial, a 9 FAR community facility. In the R7B, it's a 3 for both residential and community facility. What we're proposing to do is to move the line, and I'll show you on a map, to move the East Harlem corridor line 50 feet to the west to include the western portion of this tax lot, to allow for a 7.2 commercial FAR, and to allow for only one loading berth. The current zoning resolution, which is truly outdated, requires 3 loading berths. The building is built with 1. So we actually have to create a mechanism to give relief from this situation. The development as built is a 10-story building. It's going to be all life science. It's a 7.06 FAR, a little over 133,000 square feet. It's 10 stories, 145 feet tall, and it has 1 commercial loading berth. Again, on the left is the actual building. The middle section where my cursor is showing shows the bump out that we're carving out just 50 feet into the R7. And here's a rendering of the picture of the proposed building, or the actual building. Right now, the building is seeking a TCO. We were told we were going to have it in August. It's now September. We'll see when we get it. This on the left, where my cursor is the existing zoning. You can see that the East Harlem corridor is 100 feet deep. It's the shaded area. The area checkered is what we're proposing to expand. You can see on the right where my cursor is now what the after zoning would look like. Here's a comparison between the existing, the permitted, and what we're proposing. Again, what we're proposing is less than the permitted commercial FAR. It's 145 feet. It's 90 feet less than the maximum height, and we're not proposing any residential. Here's a color rendering of the site just to give some orientation. Taino Towers is here to the right, to the northeast of the site. And the light blue is the area that we're rezoning. It's 50 by 126. And again, this deck repeats itself. It's a 7.06, 133,000 square feet, 10 stories, 145 feet. Here's what the building looks in profile. It's all life science commercial. The building is built with energy efficient lighting, a green roof, and high efficiency heating and cooling. You all know this probably better than I do. Here is a neighborhood picture of building heights. Our building is 145. Tayano Towers is, diagonally across the street at 324, but it gives you an idea that we're not excessively tall in relation to the rest of the neighborhood. In terms of walking to mass transit, it's a short walk to the bus. It's an 8-minute walk to Lexington and 125th Street. Hopefully phase 2, 2nd Avenue subway will be built, and it will be a 3 to 5 minute walk to the 116th Street and 2nd Avenue station.
Hey, Richard, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Can you go back? Unfortunately, your mic dropped in the middle of your presentation.
I'm sorry.
Go back to the 7.6 slide.
Okay.
Yep. Right there.
That one?
Yep. Sorry.
So should I start again?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, we didn't hear you.
Okay, Jason, I'm sorry. Thanks for letting me know. So the building is proposed for it's actually built, it's not proposed. It's built to a 7.06 FAR. The amendment permits a 7.2 FAR. We're not going to add anything to this building. We're not going to demolish this building. This building is built. The only real change is going to be internal to the building. This shows the building in terms of profile, shows the street wall, the setbacks, and the maximum height is 10 stories. I was talking about the building is going to be a smart building. It's energy efficient. It has a green roof, and it has high efficiency heating and cooling. This is why I really like to do in-person meetings. There's always a glitch when I talk on my computer. And being an old timer, it makes me nervous. So I'm letting you know secrets. So this is a neighborhood picture in terms of height of neighboring buildings. Tayano Towers, which is catty corner across the street, is 324 feet tall. Our building is 145, but you can see that we're not excessively tall. We fit into the neighborhood. In terms of transit, we're a short walk to the 3rd Avenue bus, 125th and Lex, and the Metro North Station is an 8 to 9 minute walk, depending on how fast you walk. And hopefully the 2nd Avenue subway phase 2 will be constructed in our lifetime, and that's going to be a 5-minute walk to 116th and 2nd. The tax map gives you an idea. This dotted line where my cursor is showing is the existing boundary line between the R7B and the C46. Our proposal is to add this 50 by 126 foot rectangle into the East Harlem corridor. And as part of that, even though we're not doing residential, we also have to map it as an MIH district to be in keeping with the East Harlem corridor. Here's a larger zoning map showing what we're proposing. And again, here, I'm going to just, on my screen, this is pretty small. I'm not sure what you're looking at. But on the right, where my cursor is, it shows the little bump out, the 50 by 126, that's becoming C46 East Harlem corridor. I can go, I have lots of slides, but basically what we're proposing is a slight text amendment, a slight map amendment to allow this existing built building to be all life science. And that's basically my proposal.
Thank you, Richard. I think you did an excellent job. in your presentation. That being said, committee discussion, before we begin discussion and taking questions on this item, please be reminded of the following meeting ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. There will be no use of the chat function to ask questions. The next, more particular to the public. If you have a question, raise your hand. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the item being discussed, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. First, we will recognize board members. First we will recognize committee members, then board members, then public members that are present, and then public members that are online and or board members. That being said, anybody have any questions from the committee relevant to this application? Jessica? Morris?
I'm just getting warmed up, and it's been a while since I've been here. And so I don't know, George gave us a memo that was really helpful.
Correct.
I don't know if hearing from George before we ask questions is good, or can I ask my question?
Ask your question and then we'll go to the consultant and besides, but thank you.
Okay, so I'm a little bit, want to know a little bit more if this was intended from the get-go, where it seems a little bit after the fact, to perhaps speak a little bit to the rezoning as an afterthought is one kind of question. The other one, sort of as consideration for board members, is the risk of losing viable housing development opportunity, and setting a precedent for a more commercial-based district as opposed to a place where housing is considered. And then this use change, is this something that is just a little bit ahead of the zoning for economic opportunity use provisions that the city is currently working on in their citywide zoning text amendment? Should we not be worried about it? Or is this something that is separate and different from that entirely? So those are my questions.
So first, the building, Jason, should I respond or should I wait for all the questions?
Yes, please respond.
Okay,
I'll just so everybody knows, I'll jump in when you're out of order. That's as simple as it is. If we keep it professional, flowing, there's no issue. Thank you, though.
so Jessica, this site was constructed as a right, as a mixed-use community facility commercial building. It was never intended to be a residential building. The tenant, for financing reasons, requested that we seek an amendment to the zoning to allow for the entire building, including the western portion of the tax lot, to permit life science use. It's not after the fact, it's allowing a response to market condition. Also, in terms of city policy, both city planning and EDC have been seeking additional life science uses throughout the city. This would be the first life science building in East Harlem, and it would service the local hospitals, both to the west and to the north. So this is creating an opportunity for this type of use to come into East Harlem. And right now, the building could have 3.4 FAR of life science. What we're proposing is a 7.02 or a 7.06. So we're less than doubling it.
Does that answer your questions, Jessica?
It says, yeah.
Vinny, I'm sorry, Jessica, Elliott, and Vincent Torres.
Thank you, Chair.
Jessica, Elliott, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I got the Jessica Smith. Okay, sure, thank you, Jessica. So, on the tenant request, can you tell us who that tenant is, a little bit about what their organization is, is there an organization already established in East Harlem? And what life sciences practices are they intending to engage on the site now that the footprint is gonna expand quite exponentially if this is granted.
I don't have an answer for you on that one. The applicant, my client, is negotiating with multiple life science users. We're not at liberty to say who they all are. When we have a signed lease, I will share that with the community board. Also, I made the commitment to the council member that when it's time, we will work with that user to reach out to the math science high school on 116th, as well as Hunter College, in terms of creating other community connections. But at this point, I'm not at liberty to say who the various tenants could be.
Thank you.
But to be honest, we wouldn't be going through this lengthy and expensive process if they really didn't want to do life science.
That answer your questions?
It does, thank you.
Jessica Elliott.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for your presentation. My question is if you could please expand upon the adjustments that you're asking for within the amendments to the mandatory inclusionary housing, and to speak a little bit about the other lots included in your rezoning proposal.
So because we're expanding the East Harlem Corridor Special District, which is an MIH mapped district, we have to amend the map to include that 50 by 126 foot area in our tax lot. We're not building residential, and this building can't be converted to residential. So it's a formality, but I have to disclose it that we're mapping it as MIH. Let me see if I can find. There are three. Actually, this is a good. There are four privately owned lots that are included in this rezoning. I could go into detail why, private lots are included. Do you want me to do that? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh. Jason, you was telling me you couldn't hear me. If you give me 15 minutes, I can come down to the office.
Green dinner.
We can hear you now, Richard.
I would do almost anything to have an in-person meeting.
Did you hear my clarifying question, Richard?
No, I didn't actually.
So sorry, I'm specifically asking about the FAR increase and the height limit increases that are described.
So in discussions with city planning, they felt that we should expand the existing sub-district that allows for a 10 FAR and 235 to move from 122nd to 121st Street. Even though our building doesn't need 235 and doesn't need 10 FAR because we're built. But city planning felt there, and we ultimately agreed that sound planning permitted the moving of that sub-district one block to the south. If that's a problem for the community board, it doesn't affect our project if the existing height of 215 and 9 FAR is retained.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there was a lot of back and forth on what the proper heights should be and the FAR should be. My understanding was that the former speaker and the administration really hashed out those heights. And it just seems like if it has nothing to do with the project, then why is it changing? And Richard, you should know that the former speaker is here. In the room. And it just seems that, generally speaking, when you do things like this, is you don't make changes without consideration. And one of the things that from an application standpoint is that there's no reason given in the application for making the change. It's just made. And you have to have a rationale, you have to have a reason for doing it. And it was, you know, clearly, I mean, Richard, I'm sympathetic because it was clearly imposed upon you because it has absolutely nothing to do with your project. But it's an imposition to change something that was negotiated. Any justification for it, which this doesn't seem right.
Look, I fully understand. I've been working in East Harlem since 1979. I've been through all the rezonings. This was something we raised with city planning. Again, it having the greater height and the greater density doesn't impact my project. So advocating for it, I'm not going to do. But this was what we agreed to with planning. If the community board made a recommendation to maintain the 215 and the 9 FAR, I would support that.
Did that answer your question, George? Anybody else? Beverly?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. This is Beverly Pavone. I have quite a few concerns. One, you made a statement that this is the first life science building in the area, and that is incorrect. So we do have life science facility in the building and in the area.
I apologize. I was
Oh, okay. Thank you. In regards to, okay, let me see, where can I start? Yeah, because I had a lot. In regards to the extra lots that you have, that you proposed in put in the proposal, lot 38, 39, and 40. I'm understanding from my my little research is that REEC is not the owner of the property. They have the property by a 99-year lease with the owner. And if so, do they have the right to make these requests?
Yes, in terms of the leasing of the ground lease, we have the permission to seek this rezoning.
Okay. And in regards to 38, 39, and 40 lots, have those owners of those properties been informed or spoken to at all about this change?
I have not, and it's one of the strange things about New York City zoning. If this was a variance application, I would be required to notify them. In a rezoning, I'm not required to notify them. I doubt that they would oppose. It's giving them more flexibility in terms of use. But no, we didn't do any outreach to them. The reason why these other lots were included was the avoidance of the imagery of spot zoning, just doing a rezoning for one tax lot and one property owner. Also, city planning likes straight lines on a zoning map.
Okay.
I'm being brutally
yeah,
honest.
I understand. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much for that. I was looking at the EAS, and one of the things that I had concerns about is the environmental review that they had regarding architectural and archaeology concerns. since you built your building as of right, there was something came up in the documents that used to be part of the church burial ground. And they don't know whether or not there were any bones there because you built as of right. So on an examination of that lot was never done. They believe that there might be some issues with that also for the other 3 lots. So you changing the zoning for the reasons that you have, it might affect them if they can't build anyway because of the possibility of a burial site on those lots. Are you aware of that?
I was not aware that it was a potential burial site. I will double check with the contractor. I was not told that there was anything found during construction, but I will confirm that and report back to the community board.
Okay.
And obviously, if human remains were found, the site would have been shut down.
Okay. All right, in regards to the loading dock, the bridge, by the laws that they have now, it's supposed to be 3. If you're changing this to, full life science, I know that your tenants or prospective tenants will probably be moving hazardous materials in and out the building for whatever biological probably labs that might be there. Wouldn't it be prudent to have an extra breathe and to move these type of materials?
Well, the building, and I can share the building plans. I'll send it to you, to the community board later today or tomorrow. The building has extra storage areas on every floor and in the basement to accommodate any movement of items. In terms of additional loading berths, since the loading berth is on 3rd Avenue, having 3 of them, as a planner, I would think that's anti-pedestrian. That would be 3 major curb cuts on 3rd Avenue. Having 1 curb cut can be managed both external of the building and internal of the building. So I think from a physical and programmatic means, having 1 curb cut and 1 loading berth makes the most sense for the building. There's silence, which gives me the impression I'm not being heard, or again, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I got you, Rich.
Okay, sorry.
Not your fault.
Yeah, Richard.
You want to again?
No, he's there.
Oh, you're there.
Richard?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
So that whole answer, you didn't hear at all.
Oh, sorry.
I love technology. Yeah, I can be there really fast. So the shorter answer was during the construction of the building, nothing was found. I was unaware that it was potentially a burial site. In a former life when I worked for Ruth Messenger, we dealt with your burial site and the burial site down near City Hall. I was unaware that this was potentially a burial site. I will check with the construction manager to see if anything was found, but if there were human remains were found on the site would have been shut down. So I can only assume that there wasn't anything found, but I will confirm that tomorrow and report back to Angel in the morning.
Okay, and one more, my last question, when looking at your brochure, on this project, I know the city is trying to push, the city of Yes and to try to bring down the, carbon emissions to all the buildings. I noticed that on the brochure that you guys will be having no electrical, like it's not gonna be a total electrical building. You're gonna be having gas boiler and a gas, it's two type of gas structures that you're gonna have that's posted on your site for the brochure. Any reason why you're not able to be part of the city of Yes that the city is pushing for?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will get you an answer tomorrow or the next day.
Okay, and thank you, Richard.
And in terms of the city of Yes, I wish it would be implemented already. This project took way too long in the city of Yes.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Beverly. Does anybody else from the committee have any questions? Moving to the public, in person, anybody have questions? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Julius Tajadine. I am officially a Community Board 11 resident as of 2019. So I just wanted to say that just because there's no written requirement to notify surrounding owners doesn't mean that notification doesn't have to happen. I think, a lot of times that's an oversight in our laws, but due process may require it. So if these other owners are affected in any kind of way by what he's doing, then he would have to notify them. And I'm a little bit, was this building, Richard, built before the Third Avenue rezoning?
No, it's built in pursuant to the Third Avenue rezoning. And I'll be honest, I've been doing this a long time. I apologize. I really should have reached out to those property owners. And tomorrow I will send them a certified letter letting them know about the rezoning and what it means to them. And I apologize. I should know better.
So the MIH, because I do remember that rezoning very well. If the MIH is built into this rezoning, like, how are you getting around this?
Well, MIH only applies for residential buildings. We're not doing a residential building. But because we're expanding the East Harlem, the Third Avenue corridor, the East Harlem Corridor Special District, technically we have to include that 50 by 126 foot, spot of our tax lot to be in MIH. So it's a formality, but we're not building residential, so there is no MIH.
But if you're building on the side that, it just seems that what's on the residential side, there would have to be an MIH. Well, there's gonna be a hearing on it, so
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. The only change in the MIH is the R7B portion of our site that we're including in this rezoning. That's not an MIH area. So because we're now expanding the corridor special district, we're now incorporating MIH onto that site. Again, we're not building residential, so just by we're making it an inclusion on a map that in effect is meaningless in reality because we're not building residential.
So as the gentleman on the board stated, like, what does the community, how do we benefit from, saying you could have this change?
Well, the benefit is if this rezoning is turned down, the building is built as a commercial building. So there'll be a mixture of life science and community facility.
Sounds good to me.
And in reality, a lot of places, community facility masquerades as life science. The tenants that my client was speaking with didn't want to play any games. They wanted the zoning to permit full life science.
Thank you, Richard. I believe that answers your question. Melissa Margarito?
So I know that you said that you don't have information on the tenants per se, because you haven't signed leases. But is there some sort of notification or information that the owner is putting out about what kind of tenants they're looking for? Because it'd be interesting to see what it is that is gonna end up being in the space. So there's gotta be some sort of, I don't know if it's an announcement, something that is being put out to potential tenants saying this is the kind of use that we're looking for, or tenants that we're looking for. Is there any of that information that can be shared so that the board members can at least get a sense of what is being brought into the space?
That's a really good question. I will ask my client tomorrow morning, if not tonight, for their marketing material, and I'll share that with the
Exactly, the
community.
marketing, yep. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There's a website.
It is.
Oh, it's up on there. So what is it? I mean,
That's the brochure that I was speaking of earlier.
is it very, very broad in terms of what they're looking for, or is it pretty in terms of what we define life sciences as?
I can't speak
Oh.
so well. I visited briefly.
Okay, so then I'll look at what's, okay, I'm kind of curious.
Thank you. Members of the public online, any questions? Raise your hand.
We got hands. Your hands up. They got it.
Sharon Gonzalez.
You're right.
Sharon Gonzalez?
Can unmute.
You can mute it down.
Sharon, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to be spoken to like a fifth grader. Exactly what is life science? What will be going on in that building?
That is a really good question, because when you ask the city what the definition of life science is, you get a really different answer. There'll be, it could be lab testing, it could be medical testing, it could be AIDS experiments. I'll get you what the city has defined as life science, but I wish there was a fifth grade definition of what life science is. I mean,
Now,
for example,
I'm asking it because I taught fifth grade for 10 years, and I think that we need to know because a lot of people don't know. I'm also asking because you did say if it wasn't total life science, it would be community service too. And would that entail another methadone clinic? So my concern is exactly what will be going on in that building. And another concern is if you change the zoning for that building, how will that affect East Harlem with other projects that are going on?
well, first of all, my client would not put in a methadone clinic. He would put in a medical office, which is a community facility. That seems to be the prominent retail going on in New York City. So it could be medical office and life science, which are, if you walk through some of the medical offices, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a doctor's office and a life science office. But tomorrow I will send to the community board the city's policies on life science. So you get an idea of what they mean by life science.
And then just one last thing for the community board. I know that we're doing Zoom and in-house, we're doing a hybrid, but I know next time I'm going to come in. We should be able to see everybody on our end, even though we're on Zoom. I don't think it's very fair and democratic that we can't even see each other on the Zoom and we're muted as such, because if we were there in person, it's just that all of us don't want to be in the office. But next time I think I'll come. And the last question I have, so this building is already slated to be built. So it's just a matter of if it's going to be community and life science or just life science by itself, correct?
Sharon, it is built.
Okay.
If you drive by there or walk
I
by there,
have. I didn't know it was finished yet. I did a couple of weeks ago.
It's finished. The only thing
Okay.
we've applied for a TCO, it's that finished. And in terms of going back to one of your other questions, this block is the only block that's being considered in this rezoning. So it wouldn't
Okay,
have any impact anywhere else in East Harlem or on the Third Avenue corridor.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Sharon, I agree with you. I would love to come into, your next meeting.
Yeah, it's much better because it's, it's easy to see and talk and we can hear everything that's going on. Thank you for your response.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Sharon. Is there any other questions from the public? Great. I'm sorry. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Christina Moore, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a Harlem resident and a member of Labor Local 79, as well as a member of the Positive Workforce Organization. And my concern is if they are going to include union wages for the community, for people that live in the community, are they gonna do a local hire?
No.
I could hardly hear what she had to say. It was a
If you're
union.
gonna hire, if the tenant is planning on hiring union personnel, is the tenant gonna be mandated to hire locally?
Local hire and wages, union wages.
It's a question I've raised with the applicant. In terms of the building staff, I believe they're open to 32 BJ, but that's not decided yet. That was my recommendation, and 32 BJ, tends to come from the host community.
That answer your question?
I guess it kind of fucked it up, but I just have one more thing to say, because I feel like we're concerned about the history of the company that was building on it. And they did not have really the best rep, so. With
What was
that
the
said,
company?
Yeah, I would disagree with that.
Rinaldi.
There was one person in this company who was indicted by the Manhattan DA for doing illegal work on a site on 9th Street. This individual had nothing to do with this building, and the DA did not indict the contractor. So casting aspersions on this contractor is really not correct. And if they want, they can reach out to the Manhattan DA and verify what I'm saying. But there's nothing dirty with this contractor or with this site. There was one bad apple, and that person was fired, and he's under indictment.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna take one more question from the board, and then we're gonna proceed to discussion, because we have to take a position on this, and we have an agenda to push. So Vinny, if you have a new
Yep.
question, please present.
Thank you.
Move along.
So Richard, thank you for that information. I get. Just to elaborate a little bit further on the concern here regarding union placement and local hiring initiatives. What did the project at all utilize any union personnel on the project during the course of entire construction one? And if so, and if not, what was the percentage of local hirers that came on board with all of, do you have that information? Which I'm assuming you really don't, but do you have any information on what percentage of any local hires were brought onto the project?
You're right. I don't have that information. I
Right.
don't believe it was a union job. But I will ask the client and the contractor tomorrow to give us a listing of who worked on it and if they were CB11 residents.
Thank you.
Does CB10 count?
No,
No.
No.
You're asking the CB11 support, but thank you, Richard.
Okay, I'll keep
One more
I'm
question
I'm not
online.
being cute. I'll keep it to CB11.
Marina, if we could give her access, Angel, for some reason I can't see her hand. But I see all her comments on the chat.
Who's good now?
Go ahead, Marina.
Hi, good evening. So I do have a question, but first I want to help out Sharon by providing a definition of life sciences in the chat. I listed it, but maybe you all are not reading it. Several branches of science, including microbiology, zoology, botany, or ecology, that deal with living organisms and their organization, life processes, and relationships to each other and their environment. Biology and its subsets, any of the branches of natural science dealing with the structure and behavior of living organisms. So then my question is, can we assume that there are going to be such practices in this building, and how can we be assured that there will be no threat to the public health? And you're asking us for approval, you're not listing your tenants, you're not even, it's too vague. And that's my concern, thank you.
I hear you, and I will ask the architect for the safety precautions that are built into the building.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if you answered my question. That's not an answer. I'm asking, are you going to be doing biological experimentations that may pose a threat to local residents? That's my question. It's very simple.
I don't know the answer to that question.
So then why should we approve your project?
Well, right now, half of the building can be life science as a right. And it's not in the tenants or my client's interest to have a building that creates problems for itself or the host community. So the answer to your question is I will find the safety precautions that are built into the building. This is not going to be a use group 17 building. That's heavy duty life science, and that's at certain very heavy industrial areas.
I don't know what that is, and maybe you could define what. Okay, you're saying what it's not going to be, but can you tell us what it's going to be? But no, you can't.
I will provide what a use group 9 uses permit and what the safety precautions will be. That's the best I can do.
Thank you.
Marketing materials.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Marketing materials, I'm sorry, your question?
Not really a question. I wanted to make a statement on behalf of my union and the community. My name is Shana Laurie. I've been a member of Local 79 since 2015. I grew up in this area, blocks away from here, my entire, life. I've lived in other places, but Harlem is close to my home. A construction project is close to my heart, you know what I mean? And so is all. And I haven't heard Richard say how it's gonna benefit this community or the people here. I did hear him say that he worked here since 1979, but I didn't hear him say that he lived here. So I'm concerned that the company doesn't really care for the people here or about how the project might be built. It should be built safely. It should be built union, and the people that live and work in this community and are locally being members should be able to participate on the project. And I haven't heard him say in any way how they intend to make it safe for the community or the benefit of the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. We're gonna close with Nilsa Rama's question, and then we'll move forward to committee making the discussion on making a decision.
Hello, I just, asked my chair to ask the question and he punted it back, so.
Couldn't hear you.
You mentioned as you were explaining that you said a building that could create problems for itself if half of it stays like sciences. What problems do you anticipate for that building or for your tenants if the building stays as is?
I didn't fully understand the question. Can you repeat it and speak a little louder? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going back to what you said about this request was because of the way the building is formulated right now. Half life sciences and half could create problems. I'm asking the question, what problems do you anticipate if the building stays as is? I'm sorry if I was too loose with my language. I don't anticipate any problems with the building. But with all buildings, whether they're office, community facility, medical office, life science, there are, DOB required safety precautions. And so I will share those plans
with the community board.
Okay, thank you, because I would anticipate that if your building stays half and half, and I use that term loosely, that any tenants who go in there would have to take safety precautions based on what their offices are. So there should generally be no safety issues if the occupant is doing what is appropriate in whatever build out or whatever he plans to do in his office space. So I look forward to getting that information from you.
I would agree with you, and we'll provide that.
Thanks.
Jason?
Yes, sir.
Before you proceed, with the committee's consideration of the application, I wanted to clarify for all those in attendance that, Mr. Bass is the land use representative for the applicant. Mr. Bass is not, the owner of the building. And also that all responses that Mr. Bass has committed to this evening, sharing with our office will be shared with the membership and publicly posted before the board actually votes to take its formal position, later this month.
Thank you for that clarification. So moving the agenda along and taking into consideration of the committee's position, I am open to general discussion, and then we can proceed with taking a motion. Yeah, we have, just so you guys know, this application's already been in place since July. It's gonna be preceded by October 2nd, as shown in the agenda. So we have to take a position today, whether to support, not support. Always we could provide conditions regardless of what position. Then full board will have a public hearing this month to ratify our decision. Please.
My understanding is that this isn't contentious or objectionable in a way that it's likely to fail at council or the planning commission. So our opportunity to raise issues would be essentially with conditions. I mean, I see no reason to not support an existing building that seems to have done what it needs to do. So using our statement of conditions, if there are, can address local hiring with the building that's already built. But the other issues such as height and whether MIH is a necessary point of inclusion, I think are questions that we have. It's my.
And there's concerns with the northern lots. Jessica, Elliott?
The only way that I personally would be interested in approving this project in any way is if we change the two conditions out of the three, or remove the two conditions out of the three regarding the FAR and the height limit increase, but I'm also on the fence about approving this at all because of the impact that it has to surrounding sites and the fact that the project in the building would be just fine if we left it the way it was.
They still have to do the interior build out, even though it's not. So there will be more construction.
Interior.
Yeah, if they're gonna do life science and then build out the whole inside to be kind of whole.
But if it's rezoned, it's a future word.
Andrew?
I'd make a suggestion, as was pointed out, just a second ago. If you wanted to, add a condition having to do with, local hiring on remaining work with the building, remaining construction work, and also then post-construction work. I would also respectfully suggest removing the 3 adjacent lots. They're already MIH, just to be completely clear. And if it's a recommendation from DCP, because as Richard said, they like to keep straight lines, that's fine, doesn't mean we have to support it. Especially if it's, includes a height limit increase that we may not be interested in. From 215 to 235 doesn't seem that egregious, but if that's the will of the committee, that's, I think, something that could be easily addressed in a conditional motion.
Anyone else? Having all question, conversation, discussion, I am open to a motion.
Can I just ask for some clarification on what our conditions would be? I think Angel, you spelled them out. One being, local hiring, for any additional, construction work on the site, including, let me say facilities, in building operations. The second was excluding the 3 lots from a recommendation to remove the MAH and the MAH clause.
Okay,
It's a little.
So no, not removing the rezoning, but not supporting the proposed rezoning that would increase the height limit, because it's already mapped MIH, just at a lower.
So just.
So like the rezoning part that applies to this part is relative to MIH increasing heights, removing that.
So the condition would be to remove the aspect that increases height.
Mhm.
And FAR?
And everybody,
Sorry, I have my hand up for a little bit. This is Jose from DCP. I just pasted some links in the chat I think might be helpful, especially on questions regarding the type of life of science uses that might be applicable on the area. The city put together a 2016 memo with DOB, DCP, EDC, Department of Buildings, for the allowance of life and science in commercial districts specifically. So there are certain districts that life and science allows, which this is the why the developer is rezoning right now. That is perhaps the most reasonable venue to achieve a life and science development in the area. We're working on different options with zoning for economic opportunity. As Richard had mentioned, it's taking a little longer than this timeline, but there isn't a specific outline of what type of laboratories or research centers can be located in commercial districts, especially given what the community is raising right now. I pasted it on the chat for people to see, but there are considerations specifically about what is being raised in here, and I think it will be for particular review of the community board in terms of there has to be no involvement or any danger or fire explosion, noise vibration. Any type of laboratory that will be located in here must be designed and certified by a licensed professional, follow some type of EDC, DOB guidelines and no-profit medical laboratories. So there will be a overseeing of the particular tenant that will be in here in place, although there is no one at the moment as part of the also the application itself. We typically don't tell developers who can be located on their properties, especially it's being done as of right. But for the development on the life and science, there has to be a particular, guidelines they need to follow for it. So I hope that is helpful for you guys.
Thank you for the information on that. Back to the motion, just so you all understand this, as much as the conditions apply to an approval, the conditions apply to a disapproval. This is going through CPC, correct?
Yeah.
Right, which is a city planning commission. Not going in the standard yearly process that some of you may be thinking about. So it's no different than when we did the zoning text amendment last year. We'll just take that into your mindset and then again, propose your motion so we can move the agenda.
May I just also say, my initial question is as to why this is happening, that the rezoning is a response to changes in market conditions. At this point in time, it seems incredibly reasonable that things changed a lot in the past 3 or 4 years. In a way that, George, you made a note about a bunch of applications adding up to being a bit of a reading of difficult to market the space if it isn't all life sciences. And I think the concentration of a use like life sciences, there's a critical mass you would perhaps need in order to function appropriately for tenanting from a market perspective. So it seems like that's perhaps what's going on.
You're done?
I used to be on this committee, and
Welcome
I'm not,
back.
thank you, and you're doing a great job, but I'm seeing, and it's not, in my opinion, this board or committee's fault, but I'm seeing what I used to see, in that we get presentations and we ask questions and we don't get answers, and I'm seeing, this Zoom's great because you get to see the public and you get to see that they don't think things are being answered either, and I just find it to be a very uncomfortable position to have to vote for something and put all these conditions, and I'm hearing the same things being asked for that I heard 5 years ago about local hiring and all that. So I just don't know how somebody could be working in this community since 1979 and come to a meeting like this and not expect some of these questions would have been asked. And now we have to go, and we know for a fact that we've asked for things and they say, okay, and then come later and they're not done. And I don't think when they go to, yeah, and then when they go to like, whatever, city council, I don't think it's a different thing. It's a different standard. And I don't really have strong feelings about this particular project, but I do have strong feelings about voting on something and continuing to vote on things when there seem to be a lot of people that don't feel comfortable with the answers we've been given to tonight. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
And with that mindset, right, that's in support. So opposite would be not supporting. So if you don't feel or know what you're voting on, you have every right to go oppose. Beverly.
Yeah, I'm okay with it as it is. I know things are changing. There's a lot of questions that hasn't been answered. And I'm concerned about why we can't have the community use part for this area. I mean, we probably get a lot of people that want to do offices and medical offices up here that can definitely benefit the community. Where we don't have to go all the way down to, even though Mount Sinai is very close, if we can go right here, so they have that opportunity for doctors to be up here, close by in our community would definitely benefit the building, the community. So I don't want to lose the community use part that we already have in place for that building, even though he built it as those things, to be half and half. So I think it's a win-win situation if we have the half and half and not just give them everything, and that's my take on it.
So would disapproving with conditions, be a position that both reflects the inadequacy of the answers provided right now tonight when we're prior to the position, and that would be what would, Beverly, I can speak to the consent as well, while still, using the voice to assert some conditions, whether it's approval.
And that applies to any application.
So just for point of clarification, if we disapprove with conditions, what would be the next step for?
It goes to full board. There'll be a public session, full board look at it, and then after that, if anything to clarify, I think it goes to CPC. And, they'll review our comments.
And maybe this is
They may take a position that goes completely opposite.
Oh, that's
to
right.
Larry,
Gonna be my
which-
question.
But our stance and position will be off the record, reflecting the concerns that have been addressed and advised by the committee, by the committee, the board, and our constituents.
And just one more clarifying question. Would our assumption be that our conditions would be responded to by full board? I mean, I'm just sorry.
It's a great subjective question. We hope for the best and expect the worst. In my experience, typically when they want to get the project moving forward and some community interest, yes. Sometimes with the as of right projects, no.
Conditions are a way to exercise our voice, and they're heard and read at every step of the process. So if it goes to, the planning commission, it would be considered by the planning commission and would go back to DCP as they continue the process, and they would see that those are our conditions. Whether we get our way or not, beside the point, but that's what we care about.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we already have, it's already approved for what it's approved for. It's no ifs and buts about what it's already is. He built it as of right, and he built it as of right under the zoning that we have. You know, and it was, something that we could work, we can live with, and we were okay with that. So, I strongly believe that I wouldn't support even with conditions. I understand about the labor part, you can still ask for that as a part, even if it stays as it is.
So can we, you know, because we're kind of doing this, right? So let's take a step back. Motion to support
Okay,
or motion to disapprove.
I think I will go motion to support with those conditions.
That's one.
That's
Do I have a second on that motion? To support the project with conditions, and then we can list out the conditions. You second it. Can we list out the conditions? So that the board, the committee will vote on supporting the project with conditions.
I'm sorry, Jason, who seconded?
Jessica Morris,
Thank you.
Vincent Torres motion.
Condition 1, local hiring for any additional construction project, including
So the local hiring is for the construction of the fit out, and there was the concern of the operation.
right,
They want prevailing, any help with the terms, unions, prevailing scale, I mean,
Right.
we have all this in our economic development package that the questionnaire was filled out. If we could clarify that, by the time we get to full board. Okay. Next condition,
remove the height increase and variance.
third condition,
remove, the lots that's not theirs,
the northern lots.
Yeah.
List them each out individually.
lot,
No, you don't have to.
oh, okay.
We will do it. Fourth condition,
May I just add, I mean, removing those lots makes it a spot zoning, which is illegal. You know, and that was what
It's a
is trying,
DCP's problem.
yeah, sorry.
It's kind of DCP's problem.
Yeah.
agreed, it's not our challenge.
But you know,
We're
it's
advising our
a good point, though.
But it is, but we're advising the district's concerns, and it particularly is because they didn't notify those.
Right,
Those building owners. Fourth condition. You gotta move the agenda line, we've been on this for an hour and 15 minutes already. I had no fourth condition,
I don't,
Yeah, I don't think that, I think that's it.
so we have the three conditions and we have a motion to support the project. Any other questions on that? No, call out the roll for the vote.
Adem,
Abstain.
Kevin,
Yes.
Kenneth,
No.
Jessica Elliott,
Yes.
Jessica Morris,
I can vote against my own motion, yes.
go ahead if you wish.
I'm gonna say no.
Nilsa,
Yes.
Beverly,
no,
Benny,
Yes.
Jason,
No. Fails or carries?
I'm counting.
Sorry.
For the motion does not carry.
All right, opposite. Motion to disapprove with conditions. It only could go two ways with this.
Same conditions.
Jessica Elliott, second.
what happened?
Hold on.
Jessica Morris.
We're disapproving with the same condition.
Same disapproval with conditions. You just shot down approving it with conditions.
Yeah.
Right, so other than that, we'll send it to executive. And there's really no reason for there to be a land use committee at that. Right, so disapprove with conditions based off the three that were listed. Can we push for the vote, Angel?
Adem,
Yes.
Devin,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Jessica Elliott,
Yes.
Jessica Morris,
Yes.
Nilsa,
Yes.
Beverly,
Yes,
Benny,
Yes.
Jason.
Yes,
The motion carries.
unanimous.
Process, that was a peaceful process.
I was trying, because I heard it, I already saw it. Richard, thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll see you at full board with clarifying some of the concerns that the board and community presented to you today.
Thank you for letting me present tonight, and I'll get back to you all. You have a good night, stay safe and stay well.
committee members, for some of the concerns I expressed, if you have time, please send me an email so that way you can formally send the questions to the presenter. Next item on the agenda. Okay, so next we're gonna go to the next presentation, which is the land use application for the Symbolic Terrace project. This is a presentation, we will be listening, we will not be taking a position today, the position will be taken at committee next month. This month in September, there will be a public session. Those who are interested in testifying or who have been a part of the June meeting and asking redundant questions, I request that you hold that until full board. Only because we would like to hear the presenter and or their supporters and vice versa. That all being said, we'll now again issue the ground rules. No one will speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you wish to speak, raise your hand. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the items being discussed, please raise your hand, whether in person or on Zoom. That all being said and done, those that have concerns, because I understood that Duval is a hot topic for this district. You can submit your testimonies, complaints, concerns in writing to the land use email and or to the district manager or the chair. And we will ensure to incorporate that for the public session at full board. You can speak, but I need not tell you, writing carries a lot more further. So that being said, as the presenters here,
Jason, may I ask a clarifying question?
always.
And testimony submitted to the board will be included in, does that get included as part of the formal record with the public hearing? It's submitted in writing.
If it's done efficiently, yes.
Right.
Unfortunately, I can't speak for those that are submitted. You know, a lot of people say they submit testimony, I need not say I don't get it, so. Yes, Jeff.
Angel and I had a conversation, we're gonna get recommendations, in response to be given to the record, so that it would be a nice amount that they could be able to get record, things like what the policy, so.
Moving the meeting along, presenter. Is it Timbale's project presentation team here?
Yeah, they're here.
Yes, we're here. Sorry, it's a
Thank you.
little object here. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm clear.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Agata Naklitska, and I'm with the Manhattan Planning Team within the Office of Neighborhood Strategies at HPD. With me, I'm also joined by my colleagues, Melissa Otten, Felipe Cortes, and Rosa Kelly, as well as representatives from the development partners working with us on this project, including the Mega Development and Contracting Group, the Lantern Organization, and the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance, who will introduce themselves later on in the presentation or during the Q&A. And we're presenting twice to CB11 this September to solicit your feedback as part of the ULURP process. And we're excited to be here tonight presenting the Timbale Terrace project to the Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning Committee. So sorry about that. Our agenda for tonight will be as follows. The applicant for this application and project is HPD, and the development teams working with us, I mentioned earlier, are Mega and the Lantern Organization. The project certified August 21st, 2023, and the new 19-story as-of-right building proposed under the Timbale Terrace project will include approximately 340 residential units, of which up to 99 will be supportive housing units, and one additional building manager's unit. The proposed development will be developed under HPD's Extremely Low and Low Income Affordability Program, otherwise known as ELA, and the AMIs for the non-supportive housing units will be affordable to households or individuals up to 80% AMI. The project will also participate in New York City's 1515 program, which will be discussed later on.
The proposed development will be developed on 11 city-owned lots located on block 1767, which are currently utilized as parking for the NYPD's 25th local precinct. And to facilitate this project, HPD is proposing the following land use actions: a UDAP designation and UDAP approval, and the disposition of the development site, and an acquisition of approximately 30,000 square feet of the proposed development on the ground and second floors to provide space for 75 NYPD parking spaces, replacement parking spaces. And here's more of an overhead view for the context of the location. The project's address will be 101 East 118th Street, and the proposed development will be located next to Schaefer Hall and Prospero Hall, two existing buildings managed by Lantern to the eastern portion of the lot. And now I'm going to pass it over to the development team, specifically Michelle and Diane, to speak a little bit more in detail about the project.
Thank you, Agatha. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Ponce. I am a project manager at Mega, co-developer and GC for the project. Thank you again for having us here tonight. We're super excited to be back here again to talk more about Tambali Terrace. So Tambali Terrace is a project that our team wholeheartedly believes delivers on affordability, community benefits, and is the highest and best use of publicly owned land. Our vision for Tambali Terrace was directly informed by the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan, the East Harlem Community Visioning Report, and our vision and goals were reaffirmed in Community Board 11's District of Statement Needs that specifically stated the need for more affordable and supportive housing in Community Board 11. In total, there will be 340 mixed income units and 1 supers unit. 100% of these units will be affordable. Residents will have access to a high variety of amenities in a very sustainable and energy efficient building. They will have access to outdoor roof terraces on the 3rd, 8th, and 16th floors. Not to mention the 16th floor is also going to be entirely dedicated to residential amenities and will include spaces like fitness room, community rooms, and will provide panoramic views of the city. And as Agatha mentioned, we are replacing the existing NYPD parking lot that's on site there right now, which right now as it is does not really lend to any eyes on the street and does not do much for a sense of security as it is right now. Tambali Terrace, however, will activate the ground floor with the community facility that will be the new home of the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. The activation of Park Avenue, this has been a frequent theme in our community engagement as a means of not only promoting local economic development, but also promoting the arts. It's also going to improve security under the Park Avenue Viaduct, and you will hear more about the Algae Music and Arts Center from my colleagues Marietta and Zach further in the presentation. So now we'd like to discuss the proposed affordability distribution. As mentioned before, there will be a total of 340 units that will be financed through New York City HPD and HGC's extremely low and low income affordability program, also known as ELA. Our goal here is to deliver an integrated residential community that serves individuals and households earning between 30% of the area median income. For a single person, that might be someone that is a waiter or a home care aide, and up to 80% of the area median income. That might be someone that is a nurse or a dental hygienist. As you can see here in the unit mix breakdown, a majority of the units will be targeting deep affordability. And again, this is made possible through the use of publicly owned land, and we have the opportunity to be able to deliver deep affordability. 30% of the units are sized for families. And lastly, 99 units or approximately 30% of the units will be for supportive housing. I would like to note that this is only 15% above what is required by law. In 2019, the city adopted a law that required housing developments receiving financing from the city to set aside 15% of the new units for individuals and families experiencing homelessness as a means to address the ongoing homelessness crisis by moving New Yorkers into stable and permanent housing. However, this requirement for the 15% is not accompanied by services, and our team, we sat down together and we thought really hard about how we could improve the residential programming at Tambali Terrace. And for that reason, we introduced the 1515 program. This does come with funding for services, which we know will be a benefit to the overall programming in the building. And you will hear more about this from my colleague, Diane Luard from Lantern.
Hello. Oh, good evening, everyone, and thank you to the CB11 Land Use Committee. I want to talk a little bit, maybe just start off by saying what we are not proposing is a residential drug treatment program, a Randall Islands bus. This is not a needle center. Timbali Terrace will include permanent homes with leases for formerly homeless individuals. As Michelle so eloquently pointed out, 70% of the apartments are really geared to be affordable to lower income households, 50% of which would be a direct benefit for CB11 residents. So we think that, just looking at rising rents and gentrification pressures, that having a deeply affordable building makes a lot of sense. The balance of this building would be supportive, permanent supportive housing, and that's housing that gets people out of the shelter system and off of our streets. So we think that that's a really important individual and community benefit that Lantern brings. So we talked about, what 1515 funding does, and I don't want to elaborate that. I want to talk a little bit more about what we know and what we've learned and what we have to offer. As a 25-year practitioner of housing-based solutions to chronic homelessness, Lantern services have evolved. They are robust, they are evidence-based, they are broad-ranging, and they are individualized to help tenants who've been through the shelter system really maintain housing stability. We are really proud to say that year after year, our housing stability rate is 99% for Lantern residents. We think that's significant. We also think that it's testament to the value we add around helping our tenants manage physical, emotional, behavioral health, and pursue, larger, longer-term goals, education and vocational development goals. A little bit about how our services are delivered. They're provided by a skilled teams that include licensed social workers, certified alcohol and substance abuse counselors. We are aware of the spike in substance use across New York City, and very clearly, people who focus from a lot of different angles on housing stability. So they're specialists in this field. Now, in addition, we offer what we think are life enriching services. There are things like fitness and cooking classes, art and cultural offerings, gardening, and all of those are open to all building residents. And we found that they improve quality of life. They help with socialization and community building, and they've been very, very well received. So just to say one more time, the New York 1515 program helps us fund those skilled and robust services, and it allows for the inclusion of 24/7 on-site security, contributing significantly to community safety, not only for Timbali Terrace residents, but our immediate and surrounding neighbors. Lastly, I just want to say we hear community feedback, and Lantern has taken concrete steps. I'll talk a little bit about that more on the next slide, to improve public safety and security operations at our existing sites, as well as our communication with local stakeholders. So just a little bit. Since April 2023, we've met monthly with our most immediate neighbors and stakeholders. They include representatives of the board, elected officials, and the Harlem East Block Association, as well as Lydia's Magic Garden, which is contiguous to our site. It's been a platform to discuss safety issues in the Park Avenue corridor, but also just really importantly to establish a structured feedback loop between the community and Lantern. Some of the results: we've added brighter exterior lighting. We've added additional security cameras. We've upgraded security writ large at both of our sites. We've secured additional funding that's allowing us to enhance tenant services. And really importantly, it's really helped us not only continue our dialogue and collaboration with the 25th precinct, but also to strengthen it. Things that some people know, we presented at 4 pre-ULURP meetings in June, including housing, land use, landmarks and planning, human services, economic development, and culture. And we're repeating this with landmarks now, not landmarks, I'm sorry, land use now. We've attended, a variety of community events, 13 to date. We provide project information, We've talked to over 350 community members, and we've collected support letters that will be added to the public record from those individuals. And and I think really importantly, we've been educating residents on how to register for the opportunity, the affordable housing opportunity that will be available through Tamale Terrace. And lastly, we sponsored 2 free Salsa Saturday concerts at La Marqueta. And they were not only community concert events, they were really fun. So with that, I'd like to pass baton to my colleague, Marietta, from the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. We'll talk a little bit more about the vision and the dream and the opportunities that
Good evening, Diana and everyone. It is an honor to be here and be part of this presentation to the CB11 Land Use, Landmarks and Planning Committee. We're very happy to be here again presenting, and we are very excited to be part of this project, to be part of the East Harlem rich cultural and musical legacy, and brings much needed intergenerational programming to this community. One of the things that we want to present is how the programs that we are proposing are not only animate this section of East Harlem, but bring the community together, a different kind of generation. This will be a permanent home of the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. We have been looking for a permanent home for a long time, and now we are going to use this space to build the Afro-Latin Music and Art Center that not only will have a theater and many community spaces that my colleague Zach is going to explain to you how we are going to share these spaces with the community, but it would also create opportunities for use of all these spaces. We been in Harlem for a long time, but this is a permanent home that we want to build. Instead of being switched to different parts of Harlem, we want to build a safe and beautiful and welcoming space. This is part of our vision for Timbale Terrace from day one. And we are confident that along with our project partner, Timbale Center will be the place that East Harlem will be really proud of. To that end, we are going to be building, as I said, performing spaces, rehearsal spaces, music educational facility, meeting rooms. We are envisioning a co-working space for the community, event spaces, and cafes, and a couple of retail spaces. And here is my colleague Zach, who will tell you more specifically about how these spaces are going to be designed to serve the community. In fact, we are inviting the community to design the spaces with us. Zach.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we'll be having regular performances multiple nights a week throughout the year. We'll have educational classes. We want to be a community music school for young people and not so young people in the neighborhood. We really envision this place, the Afro-Latin Music and Art Center, not as just a hub for arts in East Harlem.
Sorry, you have an echo there. Is there any other thing going on in there?
I'm not hearing the echo, Marietta.
Yeah, we don't envision this just as a hub for arts, but also a resource for artists already in East Harlem. So all of our spaces will be made available to local artists and anyone interested in becoming an artist or learning more. This will be an extremely actively used space that will activate our stretch of Park Avenue on a regular basis throughout not only the day, but also most evenings. We'll also be in the community outside of our space. We currently, as of last school year, we're in about 29 schools throughout the city. And this year we're already, public schools, this year we're already set to be in more than that. And, you know, we're making inroads with the local school district to have, continue bringing school music residencies into schools in this area. We'll continue doing music events throughout the neighborhood, in parks, on the street, continuing at La Marqueta. And, you know, one of the things we've been really working on being up here is developing these partnerships already. We have our offices at the El Barrios Art Space at PS 109. We've been doing performances at El Museo del Barrio with Borican Health Center, Marcus Garvey Park. We're working on things with the Harlem Art Park, La Marqueta. We've been working with Los Pleneros de la 21. And we're just really excited to be in this neighborhood and to be serving the community and just creating opportunities and chances for everyone to get together and share in all this music.
All right, and with that, that concludes our presentation. We welcome any questions. Thank you for allowing us to present.
Thank you. Great presentation. Members of the board. Any questions? Committee.
Sorry.
It's all right. Public goes next, but Beverly.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I'm okay with a lot of things. Okay, but let me go for my questions. Are we just talking about, we're talking about everything that you're presenting, not just the jazz part of it, right? Is the housing and everything for the questions, right? Okay, in regards to the units, because I know it's a lot of people that's pushing back because of, I believe, the 100 or 99 units that gonna be for supportive housing. Can you tell me with these from your okay, so your supportive housing would all be studio apartments?
Yeah, so it will be 97 studios and then two bedrooms. So if you can see the presentation, it will be more studios.
Okay. So it being under the part of the 1515 program, and the history that Latin has about the people that they work with, can you tell me whether or not what population of the people that you work with would be put into these programs? Because if you're going by the 1515 project and they have a listing of populations that it serves, I think a lot of concerns is that it's single men here, but you do work with other populations under your organization.
Yes.
And I would like to know whether or not that can, first of all, it's going to be all single men. I think that's one of the main persons.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, will be single adults, but it's not as specific within that. It's not another subset of just men. It can be men, women, the elderly, anyone.
It can be young, it can be, yeah.
Right, because
there's
of the
no age restriction.
There's no age restriction.
It can,
gender.
so
Oh, okay, because I know you also, based on the population that the 1515 has, you have a lot of programs. The population also includes young adults. And I think, giving them a chance within the community would be very beneficial for them to grow into the community and prosper. Also, in regards to, I just lost my train of thought. So you have the 2 bedrooms. So it won't be just men, it'd be, I guess that was a lot of things that people were asking about. And I know they have, one of the populations is kids that's gonna be aged out of foster care.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's one of the people that y'all population that you work with also. So I'm hoping that you give a lot of the apartments to that population. Also, not just, that the age group be spread, but it would be nice to have the children, people that 18 or 16 or more able to get into these units. And my next question is, I understand that these 97 apartments for the subsidy is not under the guidelines for community preference. Is that correct?
I can take that if that's okay, Diane and Agatha. So we have 340 units in total, less without the supers unit. 99 of those are for supportive housing. So that leaves us with 241 units that will be available on HPD's Housing Connect, the lottery system. Half of those, or 120 units in total, will be given preference for residents of Community Board 11.
Right, that part I understand, but in regards to the supportive housing, that's not necessarily true, that the community residents that would probably need this service is that it's not necessarily they will be able to get at least
can I speak
25%
to that?
anything. Yeah.
Let me speak to that a little bit. So, supportive housing is resourced and intended to help the city move people out of homelessness into something that's stable and that works for them and that supports them. So we get our referrals from the city. There is over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 years, the city has really leaned into a system that allows them to actually look at people who are in the homeless system and begin to factor in things like, what housing best suits their needs.
And
Are
Diane,
there community
I'll jump
preference?
in real quick, just
Okay, go on.
from the city. Hi, my name is Melissa Otten. I'm the director of Manhattan Planning. As Diane was alluding to, although it's not the same CB preference as you would see with the other affordable housing units that are going to go through Housing Connect, HPD and HRA in the city really take the desire for people in the shelter system to stay in their neighborhoods very seriously. So, what we've been working with the development team with is, their commitment on partnering with local organizations and people in local shelters and making sure that those individuals are aware of this project coming online and that they're able to get their applications together. And if they would prefer, to be to state their location preferences, they are able to do that, and thereby hopefully maximizing who will come and stay in the neighborhood.
Would that also include the children that's going to be aged out of the foster care? Do y'all make any outreach to that population through HRA or any other agency?
So let me just say, so we currently serve youth who are aging out of foster care at one of our buildings on 118th Street. In fact, we were the first organization in the city of New York to serve that population, so we feel pretty comfortable. We do serve, like I said, in this particular pool, there's no age restriction, and we've in other of our buildings, we have certainly included youth aging out of care if they present and are referred to us. Yes.
Okay,
and this is an adult population, so even when we speak about youth,
we're talking about young adults.
Yeah, young adults, not children.
Right. My next question is regarding, there is a lot of more people that's coming in the community, and you're gonna have the jazz theater here. Has there been an ESA or any type of data or anything looked at on the traffic regarding people coming into the area for the show? Because I know there is a parking lot, it's usually just for the police. Would any of that parking lot be used for people that's coming to the jazz theater or participating in any of the programs that you're gonna have there?
Yeah, so the project did go through an EAS, and received a negative declaration in August, meaning that there was no significant impacts found, both for traffic and all the other considerations a part of that process. As for the parking that will be provided in the new building is replacement parking for the NYPD, specifically 75 spaces. It's not additional parking for anybody else, including the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance. It's just replacement parking for the NYPD that is already existing there.
Okay, so they found a negative impact of the people that's coming in.
No, a negative declaration, meaning there was no negative impact found.
All right, thank you.
No, so Rama,
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. Beverly, what Beverly brought up was some of the questions that I had. So I'm gonna come in from a slightly different bent. As you are aware, this project has been very contentious among all the presentations. In terms of the supporting housing units, I'm curious from your 1515 program, what exactly is the classification or classifications that you selected to help fund this program? So that we're clear what supportive services will be offered based on what you selected, because there are different categories under the 1515 program. That's my first question. My second question is that you're doing 97 studios. East Harlem and the shelter system is overrun. I'll take the East Harlem out. The shelter system is overrun by families and young people that are living in shelter. And so the fact that I understand you're trying to maximize and you're putting in 97 studios, which maybe has 2, depending on how many people you cram into the studio size, maybe 4 with double twin beds. I'm curious as to why no thought was given to making more supportive units, 1 bedrooms, maybe 2 bedrooms, based on the makeup of East Harlem and the influx of families that are coming in. I'm just curious as to, that's why the classification for your funding is important, because I'm curious as to what is behind the 97 studios only. Is it maximizing space in the building? What exactly is the thought process behind that?
that's for both HPD and the developer.
So, sorry, so, you know, the highest need that was identified was single adults. That allows also that single adult category allows for the flexibility that you're that we've been talking about as far as age range and gender. In addition, you know, these are going to be individuals and families, much like you and I, much like our neighbors, but they are going to be individuals that have certain qualifying needs, including severe mental illness or substance use issues, or a history of such. So no matter the size of the unit and the household that will occupy it, there will be that underlying qualification. And what the 1515 brings in is the services for these people to live productive lives and to continue on their daily lives. You know, just because there are these underlying qualifications doesn't mean that the people that will be living in these units cannot function in society. And I can let Diane continue on with this, but you know, we look forward to the opportunity to provide a building that meets some of the needs that were stated in the East Harlem neighborhood planning process. Also subsequently stated in some workshops that we did regarding the need for some services and supportive housing. So I'll let Diane add to that.
I just want to clarify my question. My question is, why the need for 97 studios? Why not the thought of families that may have different crises? I want to be clear that I don't have a problem with the services you may be offering. I'm questioning that the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan had specific criteria that they were looking for to support this community, right? And so when you say that this is coming out of information, I am curious as to what information you got that said 97 studios are optimal for this project, for this community at this point in time. and the services that you anticipate giving to help support. As you are aware, I am asking this question because we are representatives of the community. This is not reflecting my personal choices, but I want to be clear that we need to understand what is behind that selection and why, no matter what the funding is, right? Why did you feel that 97 studios is optimal in this point in time when we have a lot of homeless? Well,
Yeah,
we have an influx of people coming in.
Thanks for that clarification. I'm just gonna add one quick thing before I let Diane go. You know, if you're looking at the affordability of the Housing Connect units, you'll also see that we have these really deeply affordable family size units within the project. So you can see the 30%, 50% AMI, you know, more leaning towards the 30%, but we do have some units there. And then I'll let Diane go.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's a really good question. And it's something that we thought about and we, you know, we continue to. In my experience, all right, and I've before I was at Lantern, I did, you know, development, affordable housing development, and I did a couple of other things. But one of the things that I found in my experience, and it's been almost 3 decades, homeless families tend to use the shelter system on a shorter term basis. They enter crisis, it's economic, they might have a bunch of other issues as well, we all do, but they tend to use it on a relatively short cycle. Single adults who get into the shelter system tend to have more longer tenures and terms and times within the shelter system. So they are sort of the chronically homeless who you want to move out of instability into stability. So Lantern has, you know, experience working with almost any population that's been homeless. The actual mix of supportive housing resources tends to skew towards single adults. Those single adults are really broad ranging, like all of us. They're young, they're old, they're you know, disabled, they're not, but those are the people who tend to kind of get caught up. And so we do focus a lot of our evolving knowledge, and we are very expert at serving single adults as well as young adults, as well as, you know, families as well. But that's been the preponderance of need in the city that we've responded.
Yeah.
All right, before we go to Beverly again, anybody else have any questions from the committee? Jessica Morris.
I just want to reiterate Nelson's question of what categories for the 1515 was not answered. That was the information that we would want to know about. If you can share that with us, and then I think
They stated mental health, substance abuse, formerly homeless.
Okay.
It's chronically homeless with an overlay of some sort of chronic health condition.
Okay, and my question is, your timeline and funding sources are all, what is your timeline for start? Is that dependent on available funding? And what is your projected timeline for lease up and
I think I'll let either HPD or Michelle answer.
I can take that one on. We started our ULURP timeline August 21st when we certified, and we're working through the ULURP. Right now we're doing the CB stage, and we're anticipating probably early next year is when we will get to the city council vote and finish the ULURP process. As for funding, that will come subsequently after we have ULURP approval, so we can't speak to more detailed specifics about closing yet, but after ULURP.
Can I ask you a question, Jessica?
no, but
We'll revisit it. Jessica Elliott.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Jessica Elliott. I have a question for Diane. If you could please just elaborate on your process and understanding of the intersectionality of these public health crises and you know, human condition problems that you've seen in your work.
Yes, I could definitely do that. So I think, I mean, I don't want to like go on, but I think, you know, I think one of the primary movers in the last couple of years has been COVID and the pandemic and the impacts of loneliness and isolation across populations. It's had an impact on me. It has an impact on some of the tenants and the residents of our buildings. So, you know, for a couple of years, we couldn't do as many socialization, as many groups, we just couldn't really meet safely with everyone. And we are so happy that we are emerging from that. You know, COVID is still with us, but the impacts have not been anywhere near as lethal. And you know, and at least among our tenants, we went from maybe a 15% vaccination rate early in the pandemic to about a year afterwards to a 70 to 90% vaccination rate. So that has helped protect them health-wise. The isolation is still a thing. I think the other really big thing is that, you know, we follow a lot of societal trends, and just the opiate crisis has landed in New York City across every single borough, every single community, every single income group. And so we're essentially a social work model. That's how we work individually with people, we work in groups, we offer on-site resources, we offer connections to community-based resources that may be more intensive. And we really try to work on building a vibrant community that's supportive to all. So I would just say that in the last few years, things like fentanyl and some other things have really helped us like refocus and sharpen our pens and really think of you know, working with people around some of the challenges that are out there on the streets of New York, and temptations. So really working with that. And so we've done a lot to do more around, you know, hiring peers who might have walked the walk. We are doing a lot more hiring of certified alcohol and substance abuse counselors and integrating them into our teams. We're doing a lot more sort of liaison with and keeping up on what the trend lines are around that. But in general, it's really, there's always going to be an intersection between what we do on the individual level, what we do on the building level, and what are the larger forces out there in society. And we just, you know, we stay connected to our colleagues, to experts in the field, to resources, and it's the way that we've been able to evolve and grow and deepen our practice. So I hope that answers some of your questions, but if not, please let me know.
I believe I saw your hand down.
Yeah,
Sorry, Vincent?
yeah, Vincent.
Before we go to people that spoiled already, we want to go to people that have
Yes.
spilled. It's not just for you, just general comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I want to pose, certainly there's a lot of good elements in this project that we have to support, get behind. So thank you for all your presenters for presenting this evening. A question for Mega. They have already developed in East Harlem, particularly at the Salvation Project on 125th Street. Can you tell us a little bit about what the outreach plan is, local hiring plan is, construction plan is for such? And tell us a little bit about how much success they had on that previous project that was completed as it relates to onboarding local hires. How many people worked on that last project, and how many of those?
I'm here for Megan. I'll be happy to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Emmanuel
State your name, please.
Emmanuel Kokonakis with Mega. So we definitely have a history of successful local and MWB hiring on all our projects. We can give you specific statistics with our success. What we're going to do here and what we've done in other communities, we host OSHA training. So we'll sponsor OSHA training typically 2 times, right at the beginning of construction and 1 mid-construction, to you know, allow local community members to gain the necessary prerequisites. You need a 40-hour OSHA card. in order to step foot on a construction site. So we like to phase that for the very safest of construction. So we're gonna be teaming up with a local community organization and sponsoring them hosting ocean training. Through that, we work with building skills through the Hire NYC portal, to garner and to filter local community residents interested in positions to hire them. So all new hiring positions first go through Hire NYC for local hires. So we have all our projects have these local hiring and MWBE goals associated with them, and we have a history. We're happy to give you hard statistics.
And I would add to Manny's point with our local hiring history, just on recent projects we've had overall, we frequently exceeded the local hiring requirements because of all the groundwork we do with the community. So we're super excited to be able to bring that here too.
So thank you for that. And again, do we have any, and if you can provide some particular numbers, right, as it relates to direct, right? Sometimes goals are not met. And if you met and exceeded some goals, what was the percentage of that you just mentioned? Was it a 5% goal, 40% goal? Was it directly related to minorities in that goal you just referenced, or was it directly related to local hiring?
Yeah, well, we have hard data, and we're happy to share that.
Thank you.
I mean, I think one of the big concerns is I guess the substance abuse portion in supportive housing. And I think a lot of people think there's an oversaturation in this neighborhood. I don't know if it's HPD or who. Could somebody though provide statistics on where the actual supportive housing related to substance abuse, what the distribution is in New York City right now? So we could in fact see if this is a dumping ground, as people are calling it, or if maybe it just appears that way. But I think that it would be nice to see some kind of map or statistic to see if we're getting more than our fair share, especially when we ask if the supportive housing is going to have a preference towards people in this community, and we're not getting a definitive answer that is a yes. In fact, we're not getting an answer really. So I think that really to see that, if the numbers are good and we are indeed not getting more than our fair share, then I think there should be a willingness to share those statistics. And I'm sure some agency in New York City, if it's not HPD, has that. And I think it would be good for us to see.
HPD?
Sure. I mean, I don't have the statistics on hand right now. We could see what we could provide, but I do want to just note that HPD's approach to supportive housing is that we provide it throughout the city in every single borough in order to meet the needs of those citizens that are in greatest need. You know, we have very few city-owned sites left, and when possible, we try to leverage those sites to provide a range of affordability and also, you know, provide services to, again, as I stated, those citizens that are most in need. So this is definitely a citywide approach.
So Melissa, you'll work to get us those statistics by full board.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
You're gonna get us the statistics before full board.
Look into it.
Before I go to the DM, Beverly and Nilsa.
Nilsa, you want to go first?
Okay. With all due respect, I thank you for your comment. And I understand HPD's approach citywide. I do work with New York City Housing Connect with people in East Harlem and citywide as well. So I understand that process. The East Harlem neighborhood plan was part of this area's rezoning. And we rezoned based on the fact that our community's voices were heard under then Speaker Melissa Mark Viverico, who is actually given the room. So, and we were very specific in having partners, or she was very intent and specific in having different not-for-profits at the table and community members so that they can voice their concerns and look at the visioning of East Harlem. So while I understand HPD's concerns citywide, I and this community board is concerned about that plan, what was outlined, and what has come since then, and what is planned to be. So if you can, get those statistics requested by ADEM, and you may get them from the state, because the state is the one that puts programs in this community. We would appreciate that, because while you are looking citywide, we are looking internal to our borders. And we have to hold up what was agreed to when planning comes around, because that is only fair. This community agreed to certain things, agreed to certain populations, getting like seniors and HIV/AIDS and things like that, that at the time we felt needed the support. So every single time that there seems to be no discussion from HPD and the projects come and the community questions them, it sounds like we don't want to be partners. It's not that we don't want to be good partners, it's that we're questioning where does this come from without the community input, the current community input. So I would appreciate for me to see those statistics as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, just to note, we did pull up the goals that came out of the community, the robust community outreach that was done following the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan. There were a series of community workshops where there were some goals identified. And subsequently the East Harlem Community Visioning Report. And I think some of these goals have been codified also in the Community Statement of Needs over the years. And this project, we feel, is very responsive to those goals that were stated within that robust community input process. You can see some of them here where there's prioritizing deep levels of affordability, as well as programming for vulnerable populations. You can also see how there is a desire to activate the ground floors. You know, when we did the community workshopping for the RFP from which this project comes from, there was a great concern with really activating the street around here, bringing people, bringing eyes on the street, bringing activity, bringing you know, some uses that would really be great for the community. You can see there's arts and cultural. So we have the Alja Center that's going to be here. And also we should note that with the services that are going to be brought here, there is going to be, and the development team can also add on to this, but there are going to be, you know, professional on-site monitoring security brought to this area, which is not currently there. There's also going to be, you know, exterior lighting. There's going to be people coming in and out, you know, listening to music or participating in music classes and other events. So we do think that this project is really responsive to the goals that we've heard over the years. And I can turn it over to the development team if they have anything to add.
I think this question was specific, and unfortunately, you're not getting the answer from HPD at the moment, so we're gonna move on. Vinny?
Yeah, just related to community. Had the group had some local support, for example, like NYPD, right? It's a former NYPD site utilized for parking. Are you getting, can you talk to us a little bit about some more of the local support you guys have received or are receiving or engaged with? For example, NYPD, local defectors, have you had any conversations with some of the local electeds, other community workforce development organizations, and other community stakeholders?
I will start. You know, I always thought, I think each, am I off? Okay. So I think each of the major, like, you know, participants has been working on really doing outreach in their area. Alga's in the area of arts and culture. Lantern is more focused on affordable housing and human services organizations. And so we have made these presentations about the project to all the electeds who are involved or would be involved in the ULURP process. We've discussed it with, and we're continuing to engage individuals, people in the community. We're looking at organizations that do like work or do supportive, human services. And I'll say just across the board, if we're talking about the folks who we know of, right, and we've been introduced to, their response has been looking at the project as a whole. It's a mixed use project. It's a mixed tenancy project. It offers affordability. It addresses some community and CB11 needs. We've had a generally positive response. In addition, we've also tried to talk to people who are not necessarily as uniformly supportive. And the more we talk, and when they come and they see our buildings and they talk to us and they get to have one-on-one time to have their questions answered, it's never been more negative. It's always been, they've offered us an open ear, and they've been really, I think, interested in the time and the courtesy and the respect that we offer them, and vice versa.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Nixon?
Not entirely, but
we could follow up and write.
So you can follow up, all right, and we can be more specific or whatever.
We've been collecting support letters, and we'll be sure to share them ahead of the full hearing. I'm Dan Kent from Lancaster.
Thank you, Dan. I'm calling you when it's time. Jessica Morris.
Just a kind of point of observation, in touring. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned here tonight that may have been mentioned at previous presentations is the unique opportunity that Lantern has as a steward, in that they are their own neighbors. It's not just this property, but their footprint is across the street and around the corner. And I think that capacity for community building in this particular place is it's something that's very rare in a sort of a real estate intensive place like New York City, to have that concentration of activity that is predominantly good, and a place where there's an understanding of what's going on in a certain place, and you add Afro-Latin jazz on top of that, and all of that kind of good community activity. It's a great recipe, not without concern, but I think the things that are concerning as a percentage of the project outlay with what's going on there right now is relatively small, with consideration for the type of good energy that the development itself and goodness already there can reverberate in that particular corner of East Harlem. So it's a special place already, but I think this turning the corner and the enormity of the project, it's a big project. It's a huge project. It's a big, and this is my opinion, good project, by and large, in many ways. So the community outreach, Vinny, I think is a good question, but in some ways they are their community already there, which is kind of remarkable.
Thank you, Jessica. We'll move to the DM, and then from there we'll go to the public, and then we'll close it.
So I think I have a statement, and I may have a question. This project, for those listening and for those present, is the result of many, many years of work, not just since the neighborhood plan, but in all the efforts preceding the neighborhood plan, discussed and decided at this table with the community present. So I'll say again, like I've said in previous meetings, any suggestions, or allegations of not consulting with the community are baseless and a distraction. At this table, this board voted to issue recommendations for the rezoning of Park Avenue in 2012. Years before the neighborhood plan, asking specifically for that site to be developed as 100% affordable housing. Making it a priority that any development on city-owned land be 100% affordable, which is what's being proposed here and being disregarded because some have concerns about saturation. Well, then let's talk about what exactly are you talking about when you say saturation? Are you saturated with affordable housing? Does that offend you? Are you offended by the saturation of support services? Do you have a problem with the saturation of drug treatment facilities? Okay, perhaps. This is not a drug treatment facility. This is housing with support services. And my disappointment, repeated disappointment, I'll be frank, with HPD and this development team had not been clearer about that differentiation since this project was presented a year and a half ago. I'm tired of reminding them. Clear up what the difference is between a drug treatment facility, an overdose prevention center, and supportive housing. There is a clear difference. There are some people, as evidence in the chat for months on end, that continue to think, and even some members of this board, that that's going to be a methadone clinic. Dan Kent, representative for Lantern Organization, I ask you directly, will that be a methadone clinic?
No.
Okay, thank you. So if we could then focus on the only controversial part, because I don't think anybody has a problem with 30% affordable housing, or I assume nobody has a problem with Latin jazz, I certainly don't, or parking for the PD, God forbid we complain about the PD. So let's focus on the supportive housing. What are the populations to be served? It's clearly indicated, and if anybody had bothered any of these months to look it up, the 1515 program is very clear on what populations are served. Okay, people with mental illness, people with substance abuse. Are we turning our back on these populations? As frustrated as we may be with conditions in our neighborhood, and they are frustrating, and they are challenging every day, right? I think my question is, are we turning our back on these populations? And then that question aside, the other related question is Lantern experienced and responsible in doing this kind of work? And if we don't know that they aren't, what's the issue? I do not understand. It's been months on end that we've been having extremely long conversations about this project, about 15% of the project, and turning up our nose at 300 something units of affordable housing, a figment of our imagination in 2012. It does not exist. It was impossible. Melissa's right there. Impossibility, a dream. And here we are. And, you know, if the only problem, in quotation marks, is the supportive housing part, well, then let's talk about that. And let's clear that up. Because we're spending a lot of time over all these months without getting to the gist of it. And I argue on behalf of the board, because of what I've learned at this table amongst you all and your predecessors, that you care about your neighbors. That's what I've heard repeatedly. But now we're going to stop caring? Of course we're not. Of course we're not. You have two buildings across the street. If they are a problem, okay, let's see what the problems are. Let's talk to the police department if it's a crime issue. And let's talk to the managers of the building if there's a tenancy issue. Let's look it up. I looked up the 311 complaints. Noise is the vast majority of the complaints. Noise complaints, noisy neighbors. Well, that only happens in these two buildings. No other building in our district has that problem, right? I looked up the violations with HPD yesterday, right? Nice handy tool on HPD's website. I'm surprised they didn't just add it to their presentation, but I'll tell you, 28 violations at Prospero Hall across the street for a building of how many units, Dan?
87.
No, how many units in the entire building?
87 units.
Okay, 87, 26 complaints over 2 years, violations currently over 2 years. Still active. We can have a conversation with them about those violations. What's going on, Dan? What's the classification for these? Why are these still open? What are you doing about these? Instead of this conversation about, you know, like beating around the bush about we don't like our neighbors that are having difficulty. Right? There is a massive drug problem in this neighborhood. Massive. And there's definitely a problem with saturation. But I'm arguing that it isn't the supportive housing that's the problem. Right? You have countless homeless shelters and countless drug treatment facilities. You want to talk about that, we can talk about that. How well are they managed? How many people are here? Why are they all here? That's a fair conversation. But supportive housing, so Melissa, for goodness sakes, you have to know how many places have supportive housing, and please provide that information so you're not giving, you know, ammunition to folks who just want to distract us by saying you're not providing the information. Okay, so then we know what the supportive housing is, and let's look at those 10, 20, whatever the number is, are there problems at those sites? Because we've supported all kinds of stuff at this table. We rightfully supported the Fortune Society not 2 years ago in their proposal to develop housing for individuals coming out of, you know, incarceration. That's the right thing to do. Because what else do you want? People to be in the street? We have amongst the people complaining here, people complaining about housing for veterans. Veterans serve their country, we're gonna turn up our, you know, turn away from them. How does that make any sense? I wish somebody would explain to me like how that washes. And that's not to ignore the actual issues that we're seeing in the street. People shooting up, people selling drugs, petty crime, you know, stealing from stores. Oh, no one is disregarding that. That's a related, but not the same issue. That's a question for the police department. What are you doing about the proliferation of drugs in this neighborhood for decades on end? What are you doing? Because clearly we continue to have an issue, right? So I hope I can, you know, my comments are not just ignored and can kind of focus us on actually getting something done with regards to this conversation, however you all vote next month. But, you know, we're listening to and being distracted by and being, you know, kind of puppeted by, you know, an opposition that, you know, that is focusing on issues that they're conflating with each other and are making us believe that there's a bigger issue than there may actually be. Not, again, not to say that there aren't issues in the street. There certainly are. But there may not be issues in the housing. And that's what this application is about, and that's what we have to be considering, right? People in here, and I must have forgotten to switch off the chat, and I'm frustrated with myself because I'm just seeing these horrible comments again, referring to human beings as zombies. I'm sorry, there are people on this board that I respect very much that were formerly outside. Okay, I respect, and I've learned a ton from that were outside in this neighborhood. And lastly, for the millionth time, to all these foolish people in the chat talking about you guys are not from this neighborhood, they need to come back outside and look. Every one of these people lives in this damn neighborhood or works here or spends entirely too much time here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Melissa?
First of all, thank you, Angel, because I completely share your sentiment. As having represented this community for 12 years and having been speaker and negotiated the neighborhood plan, which I am just a vessel when I was a council member to really fulfill, right, demands of the community, longstanding demands, as you've indicated, Angel. Communities have fought for so long to demand that affordable housing be built on public land. And as part of the rezoning, we leveraged a lot of givebacks, that every single piece of public land available was going to be 100%. And that to this day is being fulfilled. And this project fulfills that. I happened to be at one of the recent land use committee meetings. I was actually there just to go with regards to the Harlem African burial ground, the update being given. And did not realize that on the agenda was one, a conversation about this project, or two, a second conversation on another project that also was resulting out of the negotiations from the rezoning. The Ascendant, is it Ascendant? What's the name of the Ascendant, right? That's there on 121st Street, and First Avenue. And I sat and I read those comments that you were just referencing, Angel, about how people were talking about our neighbors and our community, and I was disgusted. People who are newcomers, for the most part, to this community, who use the ruse of saying that they care about the oversaturation of services, and that they're here to be our white saviors. The way they were talking about people was appalling. And to me, completely, again, to stay to the point, the rezoning and the district needs statement put forward by this community board are clear. That we want to see housing for vulnerable populations. We are clear that supportive housing is not a homeless shelter. We are clear that supportive housing, right, is very different type of housing. It's to help people who chronically have been homeless to get stability in their lives. And to me, I would never turn my back on people in need and our members of our community in need. This project, I'm proud of what it represents. Yes, let me say this very publicly, HPD, you did a shitty job tonight. You did a shitty job tonight. You've got to get your shit together. Because I've sat in 2 meetings and the same questions come up and you're not answering them. There's a way to neutralize the foundless arguments, the baseless arguments that are being presented, and you are not helping us in being able to do that. So, I agree, there are questions to be answered, but let's also be clear that this is not what others are purporting it to be. They're using our community, residents of this neighborhood, as the front to say that they're here to defend us and that we are oversaturated. We don't need you to tell us, right, what we need or don't need. We are clear about that. This community has worked hard over the years to develop a plan that clearly states what the priorities of this community are. And it is the hope, right, that the community board supports that, not only on the plan, but also because it's in your description of needs. That's what you've supported over the years. So I will push, not only as a resident, I'm also happy to be a district leader in this community as well at the moment. And so I'm going to work very hard to make sure that HPD is doing what it needs to do in terms of providing answers, because there's a lot of questions that are legitimate questions that were raised here that we will definitely, I think, need to be answered. But I will say, in my experience, and yes, my shift, and my term ended at the end of 2017. But in the 12 years that I was a council member, I never had a problem with Lantern. Lantern was a good partner. Lantern was a good partner, and I visited their sites consistently and had a good working relationship. And I know that NYPD can be the same way. So for people, and that's something I also heard in those meetings, to say somehow that the NYPD has a problem with Lantern's not a good neighbor, I don't know who they're talking to, because that is not my understanding. And that continues to be a good partnership between Lantern and NYPD. I'm hoping that we will hear that from them directly. So, the last thing I'll say, and I think it speaks a little bit to what Vinny was asking before, ALJA is an organization that provides services to young people and to families in this community who are going to be walking in through the doors of that development each and every day. You don't think that those families and those young people also care about being safe? You don't think that they would be partnered with a project where they felt that they were going to be put in any sort of harm's way? Logic, right? Let's think about these things. And I've talked to Lantern, to ALJA about this.
And there's a, that's an important position. I don't think people understand, like, young people are gonna be walking through the doors every day. They're gonna be part of this project. So safety is of utmost concern. So those are things that are being addressed and worked with. Could things improve? Always, yes, without a doubt. But you have a commitment from, many of us that want to see this project thrive. And I have no, as we say in Spanish, no tengo pelos en la lengua, right? I'm not afraid to speak the truth. So I will work, right, to push HPD to be, being able to be more forthcoming about some of the questions that have been raised. Because they are questions that I have too, right? I think what you raised are things that I hear about as well. I'll leave it there.
I've been kicked from the meeting.
Huh?
So we could call if you guys are still logged in,
Yeah.
Angel, can you, to the hands that were raised from the public, thank you, Melissa, for your statement. And I agree, we will follow up with HPD and so some of the concerns that have been brought up by the district.
Can I just ask one question to Lantern?
Is it different from what's already been asked?
Yeah. In regards to the supportive housing, if the population that you're gonna put in is people who, a population of drug abuse or abuse and stuff like that, that you have to help them, would you be given a medication on the site by the supportive, staff that's gonna be there?
No, our staff don't.
Okay.
Medication.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question, Beverly?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Angel, I can't see
That's
their
okay.
hands, and I want the public to ask their questions and then
Sure.
we'll close.
So we have,
Somebody at 9 o'clock.
yeah, so we have the first questions on panelist side from the tenants at Prospero and Schaefer, at Schaefer Halls. And then we have a couple of more of the attendees
Angel, we have some in the room as well.
and people in the room as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go, the tenants, then we'll go in the room, and then we'll go the attendees.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi, we had a few more tenants here from Prospero and Schaefer Halls, but unfortunately, due to the length of the presentations, they needed to return to their homes, but we do have Doreen here, who's a resident of Prospero Home. She'd like to talk about her experience in the building, and she has a question about the project as well.
Hi, good evening. My name is Doreen Burton. I'm a tenant here at Prospero Hall. I've been living here for 8 years. And so far, my experience here has been good. I don't really have any problems. Problems I did have, the issues have been taken care of, or they're being taken care of. I have a couple of questions about this new building. Timbali Terrace. I wanted to know, the tenants that live in Prospero and Schaefer, when this building is here, are we allowed to participate in some of the facilities there? Like, will we be able to go up on a rooftop? Or will we be able to participate in the gym?
Diane, all right. Diane, did you want to answer that? I can just start off with that. Our intent here too is also to be able to open up these amenities to the community. That's something that we're really working on because they're going to be very great amenities that aren't available in a lot of buildings in the area.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're working through that, Doreen, and you know that we've done, just from your experience living at Prospero and Schaefer, there are a lot of things that are like cross that benefit both, and so we'll continue to lean into that. We think and it's been one of my things being in this field for 30 years, you know, when we have amenity-rich environments, we really have been pushing to open that up to the community.
Yeah, and something here that maybe we can think of as an amenity that again is not available in many buildings is 24/7 security.
Michelle, I'm very sorry. We continue to have internet issues on our side, so we missed the last 3 minutes of whatever you may have been saying. So
just me and Diane,
both of us?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Hear all of Doreen. We missed part of it.
Okay.
So Doreen, yes, I'll go first. Doreen, yes, we will continue to try to maximize opportunities for cross-fertilization between our buildings and the services and amenities that they offer. I think Michelle, can you hear me? Am I not cutting out? Michelle was going to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, you can pick up on the.
And just to be quick, I know it's late. This building is gonna have a lot of amenities that aren't available in a lot of buildings in this community. And one important thing that I'm sorry, we didn't touch on too much on the presentation that I think is an important amenity that we're providing because of the mix that we have here is 24/7 security. That's definitely a very important key factor that Valley Terrace is gonna have.
And I'll say very quickly, we walked the neighborhood and Park Avenue and around the police lot, and you can just see the difference in dog poop and other things, the street, the quality of the street. When we're there, we actually look at our building, we look out the perimeter around our building, and we've been a resource to NYPD because, you know, we do have cameras and not every building does have camera surveillance. And so that is also just something I think it will increase our stewardship, our footprint around things over which we have direct stewardship on the sidewalk and the neighborhood.
Thank you, Diana. I'm sorry, you were asking a question. Can you ask it? And just, everybody, I love the statements. I love the passion. You can submit it in writing. You're gonna have a public session for 3 hours with the full board meeting. I just need questions. So that way we can move forward, because we're already going on 3 hours.
Okay, to finish, I would like to ask directly to Olga, what would be the positive impact for the musician and for the community and for the local artists?
I'm sorry, repeat the question because it was not very clear, the sound.
What is there gonna be the benefit to the community, to the local artists with the jazz spot?
Oh, we are going to, well, number one, the space will be available for artists to use, like rehearsal spaces, classrooms, like one of the issues that we are aware of is that a lot of artists are priced out of spaces for rehearsal, like local musicians, dance companies. The spaces available are too expensive. And we are committed to provide either affordable or free house spaces for rehearsal. And also, as we're gonna have a performance space, include some of the local artists into our season of performances. One of the way we're gonna do that is by looking for subsidies that we right now are receiving to subsidize the artists to be able to use the space that way. We are not completely going to not receive funding, it's just the funding will not come from the artist.
Thank you. I'm sorry, state your name and then ask your question.
Aurora Flores, and it's more of a statement than a question. I am a lifelong resident of East Harlem. I have my own musical group. I'm a musician, an author, a writer. And to say all of that, in terms of the music history of this community, we have had Latin music here for the past 100 years. We need a musical center. We have not had one for a long time. East Harlem has always been the musical portal of Latin music. It is the home of Tito Puente, who took this music all over the world. Our kids and our young people right now have a lot of problems because they took, the Republicans, music out of the schools in 1980s. That has made everything worse. We are in a time now, we have been celebrating hip hop. 50 years, we have 100 years of Latin music, and it started in East Harlem. I think to have a project like this one that has affordable housing, which is unheard of, on top of that, a center of music right by the precincts. I don't understand what the opposition is, but we need this. We haven't had a place for our musicians to rehearse. And we used to. Mark Anthony used to rehearse here. And we have no place to rehearse here now. Yeah. So this is sorely needed. And not only that, music unites people. Music heals.
Yeah.
Music can do so much for people. We need music back in the schools, and if we don't have that, this would be a godsend. Harlem has the Apollo. We need a center here. We need music here. And with affordable housing, I do not see what the problem is. And that is my statement. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Marino Ortiz, then Sharon Gonzalez, and then we're gonna close.
Oh, good evening. Yes, I didn't identify myself earlier. My name is Marina Ortiz. I'm with East Harlem Preservation. And my question is in a different direction than most of what's been discussed tonight. So basically, I'm wondering how exactly will the NYPD compensate the property owner and tenants financially or otherwise in exchange for what I consider to be confiscating lawfully mandated parking spaces. And as an aside, I'm wondering if the law has been changed because this has been happening elsewhere in El Barrio and other developments. So with zero, and in particular where I live, which I'm very grateful for, but we here have had zero feedback when we ask questions about the parking garage that has been assigned to the NYPD. I don't drive, I don't care about cars, but it is a lawful question. What is the policy? Has the law been changed regarding parking per developments, right? Hopefully you understand what I mean. And also, will the quote enhanced security services involve heightened surveillance of both tenants and surrounding people? And I'm concerned about that in particular because we are a vulnerable population that, as you know, has undergone tremendous brutality at the hands of law enforcement, not just in the city, but in this country. And I know all of the other arguments. My concern is the NYPDs. What are they giving back to us for taking away lawfully mandated parking spaces? Thank you.
Hi, so just to clarify, this site is not public parking. This is currently used only for NYPD parking for their emergency vehicles and their personnel vehicles. So there is no public parking component or loss. The site belongs to NYPD, and in exchange for building affordable housing, they're also receiving replacement parking. So there's no loss of parking, but it's definitely not public parking, just NYPD parking.
So why aren't they contributing more than that? I mean, I would expect that they should contribute more than just they have the right to take the space. I mean, are they contributing anything financially to the property?
Well, Marina, I think another way to look at this is we're converting publicly owned land into housing. That is the benefit that is being achieved here. 340 units of affordable housing, and the community facility that's going to offer free programming to the community and the youth.
Okay, that's not an answer, but thank you. I mean, that's not an answer. Why does the NYPD get to, okay, so they have control of the site, but they're taking over parking spaces that, according to HPD, from what I understand, you're supposed to be, you're required.
Oh, I see your question. I see your question now. So with new development, you're asking why there isn't parking for residents. Is that your question?
Well, that's part of the question.
Part of the question.
And
So
why don't the tenants or community have a right or a say about that? And again, financially, there's got to be some kind of financial benefit. The NYPD has $1 billion of budget. I mean, some of that should come back to us. And not in the form of cameras and surveillance, that's all I'm saying.
So parking requirements.
And with all due respect, I don't think that's a question that necessarily is going to be answered by either or one of the agencies here, but we'll pose that question.
No, I asked the question to the property owners and the developers. I'm not asking the tenants.
I think there is no required parking for zoning for this site. It's in a transit oriented site, so there's no required parking from a zoning perspective for the residences. The parking is being provided for NYPD.
And then they're gonna take another part and. I mean, we could all speculate here, but like I said, we can't answer this question.
No, that's the answer.
What?
There is no required parking.
Yeah, but because of the environmental impact statement, it was negative, but our question is because NYPD is giving up the 75 parking spots. Why are we getting parking? The EIS answers that question, and then the question of the 348 affordable homes answers the reason why the city's giving up the lot. I mean, but she wants the question specific to NYPD, so we'll ask NYPD, they're not present. Sharon Gonzalez.
All right, real fast. Resident of Harlem since 1967. It is the oversaturation of drug use and social service programs. My issue is not the affordable housing. My issue is the supportive part of it that I don't quite comprehend why we need much more. I want to know, my thing was, what exactly were the social programs that were going to be offered? Who would be able to go in there? And doesn't Lantern have enough? Also, my grandchildren go to school in that area, and it is an issue with the people that are in the Lantern program already being outside, the drug use that's right outside. You have the Odyssey building. You have so many other social service buildings over there. Why do we need more? I'm all for arts. And I don't think many people here are against the arts or against the affordable housing. The issue is the supportive part of it. When you talk about mental illness, when you talk about substance abuse, people want to know exactly what is going to be going on inside of the units. Are people going to be coming from outside in to get services? And the reason why you see so many people in Harlem walking around, and I did say zombies, is because we are already oversaturated with these programs. So people come from all over to come to Harlem for these services. I don't think we need any more. So I'm all for the affordable housing, but I wanted to know exactly how many units are going to be designated to East Harlem. One, why do we need 99 studios? Why can't the whole building be for families? People would have less of issues with that. So we live it every day. I see it every day. So it is a problem for me to say that, okay, Lantern already has 3 buildings or 2 buildings in the area. Why do we need a third one to do the same thing that the other 2 are doing? So before you guys say, oh, this is not, you guys are just talking, I'm talking because I walk it. I'm talking because for the last week in school, my grandchildren's school had to be shut down because of a red alert, because of police being called to the school because of buildings, or because of the residents in Lantern. So yes, you could say you called 311 and the only thing you heard was noise complaints, but I see other things. I see people defecating in the middle of the street. I see people arguing and fighting outside every day. And people don't call the police every single time they see things in Harlem. We just chuck it off. So the issue is not affordable housing. Yes, people want affordable housing. Give me a break. The issue is supportive. What services and how are those services going to impact the residents in Harlem? That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your statement, Sharon. It'll be noted for the record. You have a question and then we're closing. It's already 9:30. Thank you everyone for your participation. And more importantly, this doesn't end it. There's a public session at full board. You still have your opportunities to submit your testimonies in record. And we're not looking to vote on this until next month.
Yeah, Julius Tajadine. Right, so I will be submitting, but I want HPD or someone just to let everyone know. What's the current AMI right now?
90,000 for family of 4, roughly.
That 8%?
That's 100% and 100%.
The AMI.
For New York City is roughly.
No, for that you're using in this project.
100, there's a chart.
30 to 80% of AMI.
50%.
No, that's not the answer, but I'll submit. But
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your patience, and for the committee. I appreciate you for staying past our 1 hour. That being said, so we move the agenda to close.
So moved.
Oh, no, I don't need a vote. I just want to make sure there's not a part there for announcement. Are we good?
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned, 9:23 p.m.
Thank you, CB11. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank
Thank you, CB11. It was a pleasure. Take care.